Hi, I'm Dr. Amy French of the Delta College History Department. I'm a history professor out there and also a committee member of the Women's History Month Committee. And in honor of that, I'd like to talk about one woman in American history who I find incredibly important and influential, and that's Ida Wells-Barnett. So without further ado, I'm going to share my screen here. And so let's see, there we go. And there she is. And books are written about Ida, so we could be here for a long time. But in the to be time conscious, we'll just look at a few things of her role in the women's suffrage movement. One of the big, monumental things that she does is she helps start the National Association of Colored Women, the NACW. In 1896, she, Mary Church Terrell, Harriet Tubman, Frances Harper, and others formed this, and this becomes the largest federation of Black women's clubs. By the 1890s, you have over 5,000 African-American women's clubs over the United States of America, 500,000 members in these. These were places where women were, it was a sisterhood. They stressed the sororal bonds of likeness. They were places where you could be a little political and not be socially ostracized for it. In the NACW, suffrage wasn't necessarily the main goal. They also looked at anti-lynching, education, mothers' issues, domestic science, juvenile courts, temperance. But of course, they looked at suffrage. Here's a group from Albany, New York, and their motto was lifting as we climb. So they were there to build up other women and build up the race as a whole. Who was Ida? Well, she was born a Mississippi slave. She becomes a journalist, a newspaper editor, a suffragist, a civil rights leader. Her writings were exposés. She exposed the racial and sexual discrimination of the time, especially in pieces like Southern Horrors, Lynch Law in All Its Faces, where she describes the brutal methods of white supremacy. She describes lynching. She talks about what's going on and how Blacks are still unfree even after emancipation. Her writings earned her death threats, and it comes to a point where she moves north to Chicago because it's no longer really safe for her in the South. She influenced the NAACP to take up an anti-lynching campaign, and then to really focus more on suffrage, she creates a women's club for suffrage, the Alpha Suffrage Club. And this was, of course, to secure the vote for women, but also to make sure that there was Black political leadership at local levels. So that once women had the vote, they could use this to help get more African Americans involved in government. Why do people of color need separate clubs? Well, visions of unity were a fantasy. There isn't, there's fierce rivalries on religious basis, class basis, and racial basis. But, to focus on racism here, a lot of this exclusion from the mainstream movement is coming because the Southern states and the Southern delegates to some of the mainstream suffrage associations like NASA are refusing to play ball, are refusing to work with African-American women. And so then it was necessary for African-American women to focus on themselves and making sure that they too were included in any suffrage amendments. Segregation, whether it was de jure, the kind that's in the South, which is a matter of law, or whether it was de facto, just a matter of fact, it was commonplace. And Ida knew very well that the social ills America faced. So with the Alpha Suffrage Club, then, this was a way to secure votes for Black women. And the club raised money. They send delegates down to DC because in 1913, there's this really cool parade that was going to happen for Woodrow Wilson's inauguration. And so Ida's one of the delegates that gets to go down there from the Chicago delegates. And she goes down and she's told by the organizers of the parade that she's going to have to segregate. The Black women have to segregate. And it's all about appeasing. They said they're worried that the Southern women wouldn't march in the parade if they had to march alongside Black women. And one of her friends, Virginia Brooks, says, "We have come down here to march for equal rights. If women of other states lack moral courage, we should show them that we are not afraid of public opinion. We should stand by our principles. If we've not, the parade will be a farce." And Ida stood up for herself as well and said, "If the Illinois women do not take a stand now in this great Democratic parade, then the colored women are lost. I shall not march with the colored women. Either I go with you or not at all. I'm not taking this stand because I personally wish for recognition. I'm doing it for the future benefit of my whole race." And she did. She joined in and she walked then with her white suffrage sisters in this parade. And this parade is one of the many things on this very long road to suffrage that results in winning the 19th Amendment in August of 1920. The rights of citizens of the United States to vote shall not be denied or abridged on account of sex. All female citizens then were granted suffrage. Now, having a legal right and having access are two different things, right? Those are not the same thing. And so in many areas of the South, women still could not, but women of color still could not vote, and men for that matter too. Violence, poll taxes, literacy tests, other voter suppression tactics. This, really limited the exercise of votes, of the right to vote for African Americans in the South. Fannie Lou Hamer, this woman here, she started the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party, and was also very influential in the voter organization drives called Freedom Summer. And she really brings to the forefront, says, "Listen, we can't vote here. Okay, we're facing violence. We're facing all these voter intimidation tactics." And this forces the hand of Lyndon Johnson, who's the president, and he passes the 1965 Voting Rights Act. And this prohibits racial discrimination in voting. With this law, the nation draws closer to seeing its ideas of blessings of liberty extended to all its people. We still had a ways to go. We still have progress to be made. But this was one short story of one woman and her role in making it so that I can sit here today, a person who has voted in every election that I've been able to. Thanks and have a great day.